watching Inside Utah Politics.
Time now for a closer look at some of the big stories of the week with the Inside Utah Politics panel. This week we have Salt Lake Tribune columnist Michelle Quist and State Representative Andrew Stoddard. Great to have both of you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Let's start off with the public health orders. They have been eliminated as of Tuesday. The Utah Department of Health making that official. That, of course, was set up through a bill that passed the legislature. Michelle, let's start with you. Is now the right time to be eliminating all those orders?
Listen, at some point the government has to trust the people to do the right thing and not to, keep issuing mandates and orders that, half at least of the population are just going to revolt against. As long as there's, some basis of or some threshold of the population that is immunized, I think it's, safe for people who've been immunized to, start going out perhaps without a mask, especially in outside areas, with other people who haven't been immunized and things like that. Mm-hmm. As long as people are still following, I think they should still be following, not be in large groups close together, and just try to remember that not everybody is immunized, and the illness is still out there, and so. I think people can behave responsibly, and they should be able to do so without the government telling them to.
Representative, you, I believe, voted against the bill that became known as the Endgame bill. Now that it has been kicked into gear, your thoughts?
Yeah, and the reason I voted against it is I would have loved to see more input with public health. I know that Representative Ray did involve the Department of Health as well as the executive branch in drafting that bill and coming up with the numbers, but I feel like it was a little too political driven as opposed to science driven. I know we're close. We're doing so great with vaccines and the numbers we're getting. I worry we're plateauing a bit, and I think that we need to just keep that up and, as Michelle mentioned, keep masking where we need to. We're so close, and hopefully we can kick this thing soon.
I want to get your thoughts on this battle, if you will. It hasn't been public really throughout the pandemic. But you have Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County leadership there taking a different approach than what we've seen in the state. Now, the state obviously overriding what the municipalities can do. What do you make of what we've seen play out between the two mayors and state officials, Michelle?
There's always something to say for local control. The people elect local leaders that are closer to them. At the state level, they have different interests in mind, and they have more constituents. If the constituents at the city and county level want something different from their leaders, then I think it's appropriate for local control to be, to be used and to use as authority for, maintaining the orders that the constituents support. And so, Republicans are for local control, and I think, we have to stick to that principle.
Your thoughts there, Representative. Mayor Mendenhall obviously frustrated with her statement following that, saying she wanted to continue that as far as she could, which was in city facilities, but should she have the authority to continue to enact citywide mask mandates?
Yeah, I absolutely think so, and I understand some of the hesitation that it creates patchwork mandates throughout the state, but I do think it is important that those local officials that we elect who are closer to the people, that they are able to control what goes on in their city in terms of these mask mandates.
All right, let's move on to another topic that happened the following weekend, but has still continued to make headlines not only here in Utah, but across the country. This battle between former President Donald Trump and Mitt Romney continuing. After Senator Romney was booed at the Republican convention, the former president weighing in, this is what he said. He said, "So nice to see Rhino Mitt Romney booed off the stage at the Utah Republican State Convention. They are among the earliest to have figured this guy out. A stone cold loser." That is the direct quote from the president. Michelle, that's something we saw from him throughout his time in office and obviously continuing now.
Yeah, this is coming from a guy who just lost the presidential election, right? I don't think we expect anything else from former President Trump, and I don't think we should be giving him the attention, because that's really all that he's seeking. I don't think he's relevant anymore in the conversation, and I would love it if we just started ignoring him.
Representative, your thoughts on that? Do you believe former President Trump is irrelevant in the Republican conversation right now?
I don't think he's irrelevant in it because obviously people still listen. I did really appreciate that I wasn't getting live tweets of this happening and that we had to wait for essentially a lame press release a few days later. But I think it displays a problem that's just in politics more generally, is that there's just a lack of civility going on. And that's obviously a huge problem that we need to fix.
Let's dig into that a little bit more, Michelle, the booing situation. And to be fair, it's not the first time a candidate has got up at the Republican convention, or even the Democratic convention for that matter, and received a harsh reception from delegates. We also saw during the week parents who were not happy about the mask mandates take over a board meeting in the Granite School District. Where are we when it comes to civility, and has it really changed?
You know, these are no ways for adults to behave. We're not setting an example for our children when we boo elected officials. You know, the question was, well, then how are we supposed to show our, you know, opposition or disagreement with our elected official? Well, you can email, you can call, you can vote at the ballot box, but you know, adults don't need to boo somebody in the middle of convention. I mean, we don't want our children, you know, who disagree with a teacher in class, a teacher won't call on them to, you know, just start booing the teacher out loud. It's just not acceptable behavior, and I think that we should start, you know, setting a better example for our children.
Representative, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It said that it was appalling to see this type of behavior, and I think that's the best way to describe it. These are adults and who are making this huge deal out of something that really shouldn't be political in any sense. But I think what we have, tying it back to President Trump, is we've got the leader of our land who acted so incivilly during his time in office and continues to do so, and that makes it okay for other people in their eyes to act the same. And what we need is leaders who are willing to be a good example, and people who are willing to be a good example. And it's okay to disagree, and there are so many different ways to do it without booing.
Yeah, you make a good point there, and certainly I think civility has gone downhill over the years, but as I mentioned before, it's not the first time someone has stood up at convention and gotten booed. I remember it happening to Governor Herbert in 2016, and there are examples before that as well. So what is it that gets someone to that point where they think that's their only option?
You know, they must be desperate for, you know, just to express that disapproval, you know, with their elected official. But again, that's not the best way. You know, this was a national black eye for Utah. It you know, expresses to the nation that this is how we behave. You know, fine, if you want to express to the nation that you don't agree with Senator Romney, vote him out of office. You know, that's your right and that's your prerogative. But we don't need to act like children or to be, you know, behave in such an uncivil way.
I want to move into one quick other topic before we end this conversation. Party leadership. Representative, your party will be meeting next month. I know Jeff Merchant is going to run again, but he does have some challengers. What are the most important things that you want to see on these candidates for party leadership over the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. Obviously, our party's in a better state than it was 2 years ago in terms of debt and how it functions. But what I'd like to see is utilizing our power as the minority power in the state. I think there's a lot of room to grow. There's a lot of people who are unhappy with the majority party in the state, and I think we as Democrats need to paint ourselves as the big tent party and bring in all people that we can. We've got a huge number of independents. We've got a lot of swing districts in terms of our state races, and I think if we do that and if we moderate ourselves, we can pick up a lot of more seats.
Michelle, the Republican Party just elected all new leadership for the most part, with the exception of one person. Couple of points. One, they're all millennials moving forward. What do you make of that? And two, established Republicans were really pushing for a different ticket that didn't win. How do you assess those 2 points?
You know, I agree with the representative. This is an opportunity for the new leadership to, you know, make sure that our tent is big and expanded. I'm excited for our new millennial leadership. I'm giving them every opportunity and every, you know, grant of, you know, grace to, you know, create an environment where our disagreements don't overwhelm our policies and our you know, agreements. Yes, it wasn't upset. I think that surprised most people that maybe were watching, but perhaps they weren't in tune with what the delegates were feeling. And you know, I'm I'm excited again for our younger leadership. I think they can reach out to those who are independent and maybe looking for a party, and I hope they offer something that, you know, invites them in.
All right, we will see how that all plays out. Very great perspectives from both of you. I appreciate having you with us this morning. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with more Inside Utah Politics right after the break.